Hey, this is Tony from the Cold Case Project, where we focus on unsolved cases across the United States. Our mission is to bring attention to these unresolved mysteries that need your help. All the information we cover in these cases is readily available on the internet, but we rewrite and repurpose it for the purpose of these videos. Our goal is to spread the word about the thousands of unsolved cold cases still out there. Thank you for watching. If you want to help shed light on these cases, make sure to like and subscribe for more content. Your support can make a difference.
It's a story that starts with a simple phone call, a plan for a visit, and then silence. It's the story of Donald Smatlack, a young man on the cusp of his life who vanished, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and a family searching for a truth that may never be found. January 28, 2006. It was a Saturday. Donald Smatlack, 28 years old, made a call from his apartment in the 1000 block of Logan Road in North Versailles, Pennsylvania. He spoke to his family. It was around 4 p.m. He told them he was heading to Delmont, Pennsylvania, to see a friend. It was a casual conversation, the kind that happens every day, a simple plan for an evening visit. But Donald never arrived. He was supposed to have dinner with his parents the next day, Sunday. That dinner never happened either. Donald didn't call, didn't show up, and that's when the first whispers of worry started to stir. Days turned into weeks, and the whispers grew louder, more insistent. Donald Smatlack had vanished. His vehicle, a silver 4-door 2004 Mazda 3, was found on February 9, 2006. It was in Oakland, Pennsylvania, at the intersection of Mayron Avenue and Louisa Street, about 30 miles from his apartment. It wasn't just parked, it was abandoned. The windows were rolled down. Snow had gotten inside. Think about that for a moment. Who leaves their car like that, in the middle of winter? It had snowed on February 2nd and 3rd, but not since. The car had likely been there for about a week, exposed to the elements, carelessly left. Donald's loved ones were baffled. He didn't have any known friends in Oakland. It was a place he had no real connection to, and the idea that he would deliberately leave his car with the windows down, letting the snow pile in, was completely out of character. It was as if the car itself was trying to tell a story of something sudden, something unplanned. His apartment offered no clues. It was clean, tidy. There were no signs of a struggle, no indication of foul play. It was a blank canvas, a place where life had simply stopped. Donald was a smart guy, a graduate of Norwin High School and the University of Pittsburgh at Greensburg. He had a degree in criminal justice, a field that perhaps gave him a unique perspective on the world, a world that would ultimately swallow him whole. He'd been a commuter student during his college years, living at home, close to his family. After graduating in 2005, he got his own place, a sign of independence, of moving forward. He took a job in the produce section of the Giant Eagle store in North Versailles, a steady job, but maybe not his dream. Shortly before he disappeared, he lost that job. He was looking for another one, had an interview lined up in the Pittsburgh area. He'd been living on his own for about 9 months, navigating the complexities of early adulthood. He was also in a relationship, had been seeing the same woman for 2 years. There was a moment, months before he vanished, that his family remembered. He was out for a meal with his parents, and he said to his mother, "If anything ever happened to me or if I was ever missing, know that I'll be okay." It was a strange thing to say, a sentence that hung in the air filled with a weight that his mother didn't fully grasp at the time. She wasn't alarmed, she said. She thought it might have something to do with problems he was having with his girlfriend, the ups and downs of a young relationship. But as the investigation unfolded, a darker picture began to emerge. Investigators came to believe that Donald Smatlack had been involved in selling drugs in Westmoreland County for over 5 years. He'd never been arrested, never come under the scrutiny of the law. But the police based their conclusion on information from witnesses, on things found in his apartment. The authorities believe that his disappearance is connected to the drug trade, to a world of shadows and secrets, a world where debts are paid and lives can be disposable. Since he disappeared, Donald hasn't used his cell phone. His bank accounts remain untouched. He was close to his parents, spoke to them every few days. It was completely uncharacteristic of him to just walk away, to vanish without a word. His case remains unsolved. It's a story of a young man, a car left abandoned in the snow, a family left in the dark, and the chilling possibility that his life was cut short by forces he may not have fully understood. It's a reminder that sometimes the people we think we know best are living lives we can't even imagine. It's a story that unfolds in the quiet hours of a Sunday night, a story of a young woman, a simple errand, and a life that vanished without a trace. It's the story of Terry Slogenhoot, a woman caught between hope and struggle, and the mystery that still shrouds her fate. January 6th, 1991. It was a Saturday night. Terry Slogenhoot, a young woman with a life marked by both promise and hardship, had been on a date. The evening ended, and she returned to the apartment she shared with a roommate in the 1400 block of North St. Clair Street in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The next day, Sunday, was supposed to be a day of new beginnings, of potential. Terry had plans. A man was scheduled to pick her up, to take her to a job interview. It was a chance for a fresh start, a step towards a more stable future. After returning from her date, Terry told her roommate she was going out, just a quick trip to a nearby convenience store. It was a simple errand, a fleeting moment in the course of an ordinary night. But that moment became a turning point, a dividing line between what was and what would never be. Terry never came back. She never returned to her apartment. The man who was supposed to take her to the job interview waited, but she never appeared. The job interview, the chance for a new path, remained just a possibility, a dream deferred. Terry Slogenhoot grew up in Aspinwall, Pennsylvania, a suburb of Pittsburgh. She attended Fox Chapel Area High School. Her early life, like so many lives, was a complex tapestry of experiences, relationships, and challenges. Her mother spoke of Terry's struggles, of a battle with alcohol that began in her teenage years. In the 10th grade, Terry started abusing alcohol, a path that led to repeated attempts at rehabilitation. But the pull of addiction is strong, and Terry would always relapse, drawn back into its grip. The impact of this struggle on her family was profound. Terry's relationship with her mother was strained, marked by the difficulties and heartbreak that often accompany addiction. Yet, amidst the challenges, a thread of connection remained. Terry, despite her struggles, never completely severed the ties that bound her to her family. She would call home, marking the important dates, the holidays and birthdays, a reminder that even in the midst of turmoil, the bonds of family endured. Her mother's last memory of Terry was from Christmas in 1990, just weeks before her disappearance. Terry had visited, and she wasn't alone. She was with a man, a companion in her life, a detail that adds another layer to the mystery of what happened to her. Terry also had plans to see her brother. The date was January 8th, 1991, just 2 days after she was last seen. He went to her apartment, expecting to find her there, to spend time with his sister. But Terry wasn't there. Her roommate told him she hadn't been seen in a couple of days. The realization that something was wrong, that Terry wasn't just late or delayed, began to take hold. The casual assumption that she'd simply gone out, as she'd told her roommate, gave way to a growing sense of unease, a fear that something more sinister had occurred. Terry's mother, faced with the agonizing uncertainty of her daughter's disappearance, clung to a fragile hope. She believed, deep down, that Terry was still alive. It's a natural instinct, a mother's unwavering love, refusing to accept the worst. Yet, she also acknowledged the unsettling truth. She didn't think Terry would have left without telling anyone. Terry was someone who, despite her personal battles, maintained a connection to her family, a sense of responsibility, a desire to stay in touch. The idea that she would simply vanish, without a word, without a goodbye, contradicted everything her mother knew about her daughter. And so, the mystery of Terry Slogenhoot remains. It's a story of a young woman, a life marked by both hope and struggle, a quick trip to a convenience store that became a journey into the unknown. It's a story of a family left to grapple with unanswered questions, to hold on to hope in the face of uncertainty, and to wonder always what really happened to Terry. The case remains unsolved, a lingering reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring pain of the unknown. Next, we have the story of Jaclyn Simpson, a mother of 7, whose disappearance ignited a firestorm of suspicion and a legal battle that made history, even as her fate remained shrouded in mystery. February 28, 1982. It was a Sunday. Jaclyn Simpson, a woman working to build a life for herself and her 7 children, was at the Magic Lamp Bar and Grill in Vandergrift, Pennsylvania. She worked there, a part of the fabric of that small-town establishment. That night, she was last seen just after midnight. The man she was with was the bar's owner, Gary R. Kunish. Jaclyn didn't go home that night. She didn't return to the place where her daughter waited. The hours ticked by, and the silence stretched, a silence that spoke volumes, a silence that whispered of something terribly wrong. Jaclyn Simpson was more than just a missing person. She was a mother, a woman with connections and responsibilities. Her absence wasn't just a mystery. It was a gaping hole in the lives of her children, a family left to grapple with the agonizing unknown. An extensive search was launched, a desperate attempt to find some sign, some clue, some indication of where Jaclyn might be. The search yielded little comfort. Instead, it uncovered disturbing evidence. At the bar, the place where Jaclyn had last been seen, investigators found spots of blood. The discovery of the blood cast a dark shadow over the investigation. It hinted at violence, at a struggle, at a crime that had taken place in the very heart of a local gathering spot. The bar, once a place of community, became a focal point of suspicion, a place forever tainted by the mystery of Jaclyn's disappearance. A month and a half after Jaclyn was last seen, the investigation reached a critical juncture. Gary R. Kunish, the bar owner, the man who had been with her that night, was charged with her murder. The relationship between Jaclyn and Kunish was complex, marked by a history of intimacy and conflict. They had been involved in an intermittent romantic relationship, a connection that had woven them together. But that connection had frayed. At Christmas in 1981, just months before her disappearance, Jaclyn had ended the relationship. She had moved on, begun seeing another man. Kunish, according to reports, was not happy about this. He was reportedly enraged, consumed by a jealousy that would become a central element in the prosecution's case. The trial that followed was a landmark event, a legal battle that pushed the boundaries of justice. Prosecutors faced a daunting challenge. They did not have Jaclyn's body. They did not have a murder weapon. They did not have a confession from Kunish. But they had a theory, a narrative of jealousy and violence, and they had the blood found at the bar. They presented their case to a jury, relying on circumstantial evidence and the weight of the circumstances. In September 1982, the jury reached a verdict. Gary R. Kunish was convicted of involuntary manslaughter. It was a historic moment, only the second time in the history of Pennsylvania that a defendant had been convicted of murder without the victim's body. The conviction sent shockwaves through the community. It was a victory for the prosecution, a testament to their ability to build a case without the traditional cornerstones of evidence. But it was also a stark reminder of the limitations of justice, the enduring mystery of Jaclyn's fate. Kunish was sentenced to 3.5 years in prison. He served his time, was paroled in 1988, and successfully completed his parole in 1995. He lived until 1996, but he carried his secret with him to the grave. He never confessed. He never revealed the whereabouts of Jaclyn's body. The question of where Jaclyn's remains lie has haunted investigators and her family for decades. The prevailing theory is that they are somewhere in the former Varos landfill in Buffalo Township, Pennsylvania. The landfill became a grim focal point in the search for Jaclyn, a vast and daunting landscape that held the potential for answers, but also the possibility of endless concealment. Authorities conducted a search of the landfill, a massive undertaking that yielded no evidence. The search was eventually discontinued, the cost of continuing the effort deemed prohibitive. Jaclyn Simpson left behind 7 children, 7 lives forever altered by her disappearance. They grew up without their mother, their lives marked by the absence of her love and guidance. Jaclyn has never been located. Her case remains an open wound, a story of a missing woman, a controversial conviction, and a family left to grapple with the enduring mystery of what happened to their mother, their loved one. It's a story that speaks to the fragility of life, the power of jealousy, and the enduring quest for justice and closure in the face of the unknown. It's a story of a mother and daughter, a family in turmoil, and a disappearance that has left a community with a chilling mystery. It's the story of Janet and Marissa Shugley, a story marked by a violent argument, a desperate search, and a husband's disturbing actions that cast a long shadow of suspicion. June 30th, 1985. Somerset, Pennsylvania. Janet Shugley was last seen with her 10-year-old daughter, Marissa Alexandria Shugley. They were a family, but a family facing difficulties. They had been living in a rental property near the Hidden Valley Resort, a place that hinted at leisure and escape, but their situation was far from idyllic. They had moved to the Coleman Motel on Route 601, a now defunct establishment that would become a backdrop for their final known moments. Janet was seeking help, guidance. She had been going to a priest at St. Peter's Roman Catholic Church for counseling, a sign that she was reaching out, seeking support. She had even arranged to meet with the priest on the morning she and Marissa disappeared. The events of that morning, as recounted by Janet's husband, Francis J. Frank Shugley, paint a picture of a family in crisis. Frank said that he and Janet had a fight, a heated confrontation, and the subject of the argument was Marissa. In the midst of this intense exchange, Janet spit in his face, and he slapped her. It was a moment of raw emotion, a breakdown in communication that would have devastating consequences. Janet and Marissa left the motel, walking across the highway to Dan's Auto Sales. At Dan's Auto Sales, Janet was trying to find a way out, a way to reach her relatives in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She told the business owner that she needed a ride. He tried to use a CB, Citizens Band, radio to help her, to connect her with someone who could offer assistance, but he was unsuccessful. Faced with this setback, Janet told the business owner that they were going to see the priest. She and Marissa walked off, heading in the direction of the Turnpike interchange. It was the last time they were ever seen. Janet and Frank had 2 sons, young boys who were just 4 and 5 years old in 1985. Their perspective on the events of that time, as they later shared with the police, adds another layer of darkness to the story. The boys said that their father did not return to their motel room until late that night, and when he did, his clothes were muddy. The next day, Frank meticulously cleaned the room, washing the walls, erasing any trace of what might have occurred. Then, he checked out of the motel and went to Jeannette, Pennsylvania, his hometown. After a day or two, he took his sons and moved to an apartment in Pittsburgh. The timeline of Frank's actions, the late return, the muddy clothes, the frantic cleaning, and the abrupt departure raised immediate red flags. It was as if he was trying to cover his tracks, to erase any evidence of a crime. Frank reported his wife and daughter missing to the Pennsylvania State Police on July 3rd, several days after their disappearance. His actions in the weeks that followed were a mix of seemingly concerned efforts and deeply suspicious behavior. Between July 3rd and August 10th, Frank contacted local media outlets, women's shelters, the Salvation Army, the Pittsburgh Police, the FBI, and even the CIA, seeking assistance in locating Janet and Marissa. It was a wide-ranging effort, a desperate plea for help. But then, on August 31st, Frank's behavior took a disturbing turn. He met 2 men, Theodore Schoenfeld and another man, while they were fishing at a park in Pittsburgh. He made them an offer, $2,000 each, and round-trip tickets to Hawaii if they would kill Janet, injure her aunt and uncle, and kidnap Marissa. His motive, he claimed, was that he believed Janet was hiding Marissa from him, with the help of her relatives. But his plan was chilling, a descent into a world of violence and desperation. Schoenfeld, to his credit, did not go along with Frank's plan. He played along for several meetings, gathering evidence, and then went to the police. He introduced 2 undercover police officers to Frank, presenting them as the hitmen he had hired. The officers secretly recorded Frank's solicitations, capturing his words, his intent, his willingness to commit unspeakable acts. In mid-September, Frank was arrested. He was charged with solicitation to commit murder, kidnapping, and assault. While he was in jail, awaiting trial, he allegedly made a series of shocking confessions to 3 other inmates. He told them that he had got rid of Janet and Marissa. One inmate recounted a particularly chilling exchange. Frank had asked him whether he could be convicted of murder if the bodies were never found. It was a question that revealed his knowledge of the crime, his awareness of the legal implications, and his apparent belief that he could get away with it. Frank chose to go to trial before a judge rather than a jury. He was convicted of all charges. The court heard evidence that he had been diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, that he suffered from delusions, and that he lived in a fantasy world. He served part of his sentence at a hospital for the criminally insane in Wayne County, Pennsylvania. He now lives in the Pittsburgh area. The disappearances of Janet and Marissa Shugley are shrouded in suspicion, and Frank remains the prime suspect. Authorities believe that his attempt to hire hitmen to kill Janet and kidnap Marissa was a calculated attempt to divert suspicion from himself, to create a smokescreen that would obscure his own involvement. In 2019, a new clue emerged, a small but significant piece of the puzzle. Janet's Penn Joint Junior High School class ring was turned over to the police. A photo of the ring was released, a tangible connection to Janet's past, a reminder of the life she had before she vanished. A family had found the ring more than 20 years earlier. They had tried to find its owner, and when they discovered it belonged to a missing person, they contacted the police. The authorities have not disclosed the location where the ring was found, but they hoped that this new clue might lead to answers, to a breakthrough in the decades-old mystery of Janet and Marissa's disappearances. Marissa, in 1985, was a young girl, just 5'2" tall and weighing 92 pounds. She had brown hair and brown eyes. Her image, her voice, her presence has been lost to time. The disappearances of Janet and Marissa remain unsolved. It's a story that unfolds in a small town, a story of a bright young woman, a seemingly ordinary day, and a disappearance that shattered a community. It's the story of Michelle Reidenbach, a case that has left investigators and her loved ones grappling with unanswered questions for decades. October 6, 1981. It was a Tuesday. Michelle Reidenbach, nicknamed Shelley, was a 16-year-old senior at Seneca Valley High School. She was the youngest of 7 children, a young woman with a life full of promise. That day she went to school, had her senior class picture taken, a rite of passage, a moment captured in time. Afterward, she went to Zelienople, Pennsylvania, a town not far from her home. Michelle had a part-time job, an after-school job at Meldens, an appliance store located in the 200 block of South Main Street. It was a typical teenage job, a way to earn some money, to gain some independence. She usually worked there with a classmate, a friend, but that day, her coworker was sick, and Michelle was working alone. At 4:30 p.m., Michelle left the store. She walked approximately 1 block to a pharmacy, a Rite Aid, to buy cold medicine. She wasn't feeling well, a common occurrence, a minor inconvenience in the course of a day. It was confirmed that she arrived at the Rite Aid, purchased the medicine, and left. This simple errand, this brief trip to the pharmacy, would become a crucial point in the timeline of her disappearance. Michelle's boss was the last person known to have seen her. He saw her in the parking lot of the Super Duper supermarket, which was near Meldens, on South Main Street. She was talking to someone who was sitting in a red car. It seemed like a casual conversation, a friendly exchange. But it was a conversation that would forever be etched in the memory of those searching for answers. Michelle never went back to her job. She never returned to Meldens. She left behind her purse, her school books, and even her cigarettes. These were personal belongings, items she would have needed, items she would have taken with her if she had planned to be gone for an extended period. Their presence at the store became a significant clue, a piece of the puzzle that suggested she had not left of her own volition. Michelle's disappearance was discovered at 4:55 p.m. Her mother, Gloria, came to Meldens to see her. One of Michelle's 6 older siblings had suffered a stroke several months before. This sibling was paralyzed and in the hospital. Gloria wanted to know if Michelle wanted to visit her sister. It was a difficult time for the family, a time of worry and uncertainty. Gloria ended up going to the hospital without Michelle. Michelle's brother later came to the store, as he usually did, to drive her home. But Michelle wasn't there. He waited, perhaps thinking she was running late, perhaps assuming there was a simple explanation. But she never appeared. Gloria called the police later that evening after Michelle did not arrive home. The hours had passed, the concern had grown, and the realization that something was seriously wrong had set in. The initial investigation focused on the possibility that Michelle had run away. It's a common assumption in cases involving teenagers, a natural inclination to hope for the best, to believe that a young person will eventually return. But investigators quickly dismissed this theory. Michelle had left all her belongings behind, including $100 she was saving for a class ring. This was money she valued, money she was working towards a goal. It was not the behavior of someone planning to leave her life behind. Furthermore, Michelle was not having any personal problems at the time of her disappearance. She was described as a responsible teenager, a young woman who was devoted to her hospitalized older sister. Her family was a source of strength and support, not a reason to run away. Her family described her as streetwise, a young woman who was aware of her surroundings, who would not be easily tricked or persuaded to go anywhere with a stranger. This description painted a picture of a teenager who was cautious, who would have been discerning about whom she trusted. The police questioned several people in connection with Michelle's disappearance. Her boyfriend was one of them. He cooperated fully with the investigation, took a polygraph test, and was ultimately ruled out as a suspect. Michelle's family was also ruled out as suspects. The investigation focused on other possibilities, on the unknown person in the red car, on the circumstances surrounding her final moments. Michelle was described as having dark blonde hair and blue eyes. She was between 5 and 5'4" tall and weighed between 110 and 120 pounds. She was last seen wearing a wine-colored V-neck sweater, blue jeans, and a gold necklace with a knot on it. She wore eyeglasses. The details of her appearance, the clothing she wore, the jewelry she had on, became crucial elements in the search, in the hope that someone would remember seeing her, that someone would come forward with information. In the years that followed Michelle's disappearance, her family and friends continued to search for answers. They distributed flyers. They talked to anyone who might have seen something. They held on to the hope that she would be found. Her mother fought tirelessly to keep her daughter's case alive. In 1989, she tried to get Michelle's case featured on the popular television show Unsolved Mysteries. She was told that there was a long waiting list, but that a petition might increase the chances of her case being selected. Gloria, Michelle's mother, organized a petition, gathering signatures from people in the community, hoping to raise awareness, hoping to bring her daughter's story to a national audience. But unfortunately, Michelle's case was never chosen. It was a devastating blow, another setback in the long and arduous search for answers. 4 more years passed, and in 1993, police received a tip that they deemed full of promise. They re-examined the details of the case, re-interviewed people, hoping that a fresh look would yield new information. But in the end, nothing new was discovered. Michelle's case remained cold, a chilling reminder of the passage of time and the elusiveness of the truth. Those who knew and loved Michelle, her friends Beth and Kim, also fought for years to find out what happened to her. Kim, who had called out of work that day, carried the weight of what might have been, the possibility that things would have been different if she had been there. Beth, who still has the hairbrush and necklace she borrowed from Michelle that day, holds on to those objects as tangible reminders of her friend, as symbols of the enduring mystery. The lack of concrete evidence in Michelle's case has led to much speculation. The fact that she left behind her purse and cigarettes, especially the cigarettes, has puzzled investigators and those who knew her. It suggests that she intended to return to work, that her departure was not planned. Some have wondered if she did make it back to Mel Den's and something happened there. There was no evidence of a struggle in the store, but could it have been cleaned up? Could someone, a boss, another employee, or one of the owners, have convinced her to leave with them for a quick errand, and then something went wrong? Her boss was the last known person to have seen her, talking to someone in a red car. Could he have been involved? Was there something suspicious about his account? These are the questions that linger, the questions that haunt the investigation. It's also worth noting that Mel Den's, the appliance store where Michelle worked, had faced legal trouble in the past. The owners had been fined for deceptive business practices, selling items at full price while advertising them as being on sale. Could Michelle have stumbled upon this information? Could it have put her in danger? It's a theory, a possibility, but it's hard for most to believe that such a situation would lead to murder. Kim, who continued to work at the store after Michelle's disappearance, never reported seeing any suspicious activity. The truth is that, with so little to go on, the possibilities are endless. Michelle's parents and her boyfriend have since passed away, adding another layer of tragedy to this already heartbreaking story. But her remaining loved ones continue to fight for answers, to keep her memory alive, to hope that one day the truth will come to light. As of May 2025, her case remains unsolved.